4 beefy 3-drop blockers in a row with protect backup. Like,
you're watching the Eternal Tournament Series.
And we're back for round 5 of this ETS Weekly Open. Just 2 rounds left before we cut to the top 8. So we're going to be bringing you some of the top matchups as we move through this Swiss bracket. Up next is a pair of players at 3-1 fighting to stay alive for the top 8. We've got Tatsumaki up against childroland, a couple of real ETS regulars. And of course, here to help me break down this matchup is an ETS regular himself, LocoPojo.
Okay, so childroland is running Skycrag aggro with a couple of interesting twists. This is moving a little bit up further towards the 3 and 4 drops. It's running the new Cinder Yeti to get damage through, and it's also using the ever-exciting Outland's Brute. So these 2 warp cards are going to be generating a decent amount of card advantage and giving childroland a little bit more stuff to play, and topping out at 5 obliterates with the rock slides and the torches means that he's got like a really decent amount of aggression going on. I like this list a lot. I think it actually has a reasonable chance against Chalice, which is traditionally a deck that defends very well against these types of lists. Temple Scribes, Amber Acolytes, Combray Healers, lots and lots of little 1-drops that can get killed by rock slides, of course, but if Tatsumaki can land enough Combray Healers or Lumen Defenders, gaining the life plus getting the extremely good blockers is going to really help him out in getting into the late game, and once he gets into the late game, it's very hard for Skycrag to find a way out.
Yep, but at the same time, as you mentioned, Chalice is trying to block with these Combray Healers, trying to block with these Lumen Defenders. That's where those Cinder Yetis can really come in handy, right? You think you've got this 2-5 holding off a nice board of cards, and all of a sudden your opponent plays a threat and still gets to attack with all of them. So I think that card will be... I'm really interested to see how much impact Cinder Yeti has on this matchup, as it's, aggro versus Chalice is a tale as old as time at this point, and it's fun to see, if Skycrag with these new toys like Cinder Yeti can get over that hump that it sometimes struggles to deal with against Chalice. Chalice not really bringing anything new here. There's all sorts of different takes on Chalice, of course. This one's up to 3 Archive Curators, only 3 Kothons, no Great Parliament, but the full 4 Channel the Tempest. There's all sorts of different flavors, right? And the only new card is the Vision of Austerity in the sideboard.
Very exciting setup, specifically because Chalice exhausts units. So you often end up in a 1-blocker situation, or in a situation where the deck has a few more opportunities to push through thanks to Cinder Yeti. So yeah, I think it might be really interesting.
Yeah, the other intriguing theory is, as you mentioned, the Outland's Brute. We haven't seen a ton of this card, but a 4/1 charge warp plus if the enemy targets it with a spell, they take 2 damage. Real intriguing choice. Not sure what childroland was like, where this card is at its best metagame wise or matchup wise. I think in theory it's good against Armory, like charge units are just good against slower removal. But against Chalice, it might struggle to find the right spots to swing, as it only has 4 attack and there's a lot of 5 health blockers.
Yeah, Chalice doesn't really have a great way to stop it beyond like Vanquish and Island's Choice. Like, you can of course block it with all your little dudes, but since the rock slides and the other stuff are going to be taking those out, he might be forced to Vanquish or Choice it, in which case he will take the 2 damage, and that's actually a reasonable amount for the Skycrag to be pushing.
So childroland has the play, no 1-drop, draws Oni-Ronin here, but of course just going to slam down the fully buffed turn 2 Champion of Fury. That's 4 damage in. Tatsumaki going to use Vanquish on a 2-drop. Not something you see too often.
Yeah, it's a super good opener. It really sets the tone of the fight, but the Vanquish does mean that Roland is now setting up Vadius or Oni-Ronin, neither of which are super amazing at being just as aggressive as Skycrag wants to be. So I think Roland might be a little bit behind the clock. He's not pushing quite hard enough. And
it really depends on what Tatsumaki finds here, though. He needs to find power.
Yeah, Chalice needs a few turns to set up, and without power 3, I think Roland's in reasonable shape. Certainly, like, every turn that Tatsumaki doesn't have power is going to be worse for him. He finds a seat power, which means he can get double blue or double time. And the question of which is really interesting here. Temple Scribe gives him better defense, but Wisdom gets him better card advantage for the most part.
Yeah, and looks like he goes with the double primal. That might just be a thing of also, like, math on your deck, like you're more likely to either draw or a time or a primal source going forward. That might have also been a factor there. But yeah, goes for the double primal. Can cast Wisdom at some point, but we're probably going to see Combrei Healer try and help stabilize here, get that 2/5 down. Although Child Roland with the Permafrost on that turn and double Obliterate in hand, that's going to be a lot to deal with.
Pretty strong card for this, just specifically because it doesn't die to Permafrost, and it's really not worth it to obliterate it if you want to. Like, he has to do it if he's going to get through, so it's going to be a little bit tricky. But with the 3/2, I don't think he's too worried about it at the moment.
All right, so the swing with Kothon goes in, and now, Tatsumaki could play Amber Acolyte to help hit power, but instead goes with the Combrei Healer, buffs up the Kothon, knows his opponent doesn't have a torch in hand, so now Kothon's always immune to Permafrost, but also just is big and able to block this Vadius.
We see a Permafrost there on the 2/2. Roland now has to spend all of his Obliterate to kill the Kothon if he wants to kill it, but I mean, he's just kind of stuck here at the moment, and that's a big problem.
Yeah, Snow Crush Yeti, not a great top deck, and that's the problem you run into when playing aggro. Your quality of top decks just isn't as good. Tatsumaki finds a banner that provides that second pip of time. So now he can either plop down one of his 3 cost cards or get the Archive Curator down as just another body that can block.
Yep, Archive Curator knocks Aegis's off and just sort of sets up a little bit. From here, Roland can obliterate the 2/6, and that means that it's not going to be activating and doing a ridiculous amount of damage. The 1/4 here is yet another problem child, though. It still holds Roland back. He can attack here, but it's not worth it to do so.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, as you mentioned, Tatsumaki chose to pop the Aegis on Vadius, could have silence the Combrei Healer instead to basically knock off the Permafrost and get an extra body on board, but valuing the potential threat that Vadius could become against a deck that's running things like Ornate Katana.
Roland has 2 options. He can obliterate the 1/4 and continue to attack with Vadius, which gives him a reasonable amount of offense. Or
I would just A-space, honestly.
Develop his board out a little bit more and hope for a Rock Slide later.
Yep.
He opts for the round that trades a bunch of damage and actually even chooses to trade his Ronin and his Yeti here. Just wants to stay ahead of Chalice.
I like this move from Roland. Against Chalice, you want to trade units at this spot because all these Temple Scribes and Amber Acolytes are going to do is just get better for Tatsumaki. They're not going to be worse than they are now, whereas your Oni Ronins and Snow Crush Yetis are going to get outclassed by a unit eventually. So you got to swing with them while that hasn't happened. We see Tatsumaki, though, take their whole turn to use Chalice. Does not want to. They could have done like Wisdom or use Desert Marshal, something like that. But instead, accepting that 5 damage and turning Amber Acolyte into a 4/3.
One's playing one of his Recano Outlaws. I feel like he should play both. Like, I think at this point you have to play as though the Harsh Rule isn't there, since Chalice is going to outpace you anyways. But like, we see one, and he's passed. So Tatsumaki has a chance to respond to this. He did draw the Harsh Rule, so I was apparently wrong, but we'll see if that Harsh Rule is actually going to get played. We've got Wisdom of the Elders here. He can silence the board. He can create a decent defender. And if Roland is forced to play more onto the board, then this Harsh Rule does do a ridiculous amount of damage.
Yeah, I think we're going to see probably just a pass here and some sort of, oh, we found Kothon. Never mind. that will mean they're not passing it. Instead, they're going to Chalice Kothon and get a 4/5 endurance. And Torch for turn means you can take out the Kothon if he blocks one of your quick draw units, and we'll see that attack come in from Child Roland.
It seems like the right route. Tatsumaki too low on health to accept the fact that he might be bluffing. He does go ahead and Torch here, and the obvious attack goes in, and now Tatsu's at 10 with a Harsh Rule in hand, but needs to find something else to go with it. If he wants to Desert Marshal the Yeti and Harsh Rule, that will clear the board. Combrei Healer also pops the Aegis.
Yeah, and that's what we see. Combrei Healer come out, then the power, then the Harsh Rule. The other option there was to Harsh Rule and just play Temple Scribe, as that also cleanly blocks the Yeti. So a lot of options there as far as how Tatsumaki wanted to do that, but gets to 13, but loses a pretty valuable buff from that Combrei Healer. But again, Chalice will is hoping to dig its way out of it as Child Roland just deploys a 2/2 quick draw here.
Has more Chalice plays available. He's going to be eventually outclassing on units.
Whew.
He just picked up a Channel the Tempest, so that takes out the 2/2. I'm watching the top of Roland's deck very carefully because I think he's going to need some warp units to really fill the board at this point. And I don't know. I think the Channel might have been the turning point. There's just no way that he's going to push through 13 with the amount of stuff left in Tatsu's hand.
Yeah, Pyro Knight's not a bad draw. Honestly, if I was Child Roland, I'd just be playing out this power, like you mentioned, because of the warp. Like now there's a chance he has to warp in a couple cards and doesn't have enough power to do so, but instead draws a Champion of Fury. So the hits are coming, but Tatsumaki, it's out of reach for Child Roland. I mean, he's just drawing so many cards. Island's Choice going to come out here. There's a chance Tatsumaki completely floods out here, but it's real slim.
Chalice is in full force. Tatsu's at 10 power, which is not what you want to see against an aggro deck. We see Desert Marshal come down early just to get the card draw, since Tatsu really needs to put some more stuff on the board. Card draw leads to more card draw. He's got Vanquish available for the Champion of Fury, but Champion of Fury will at least do some damage this turn.
All right, and I think we might see one more top deck from Roland and then the scoop phase here as Tatsu has just totally turned this corner up to 15 health, just one Champion of Fury. I mean, it does take Tatsu down to 11, but Child Roland now is getting hit back, right? This is where Chalice has turned it, can swing in for quite a bit depending on what Tatsu finds off this Chalice.
Some good Cinder Yetis from Roland might help him out a bit here, but there's still a Vanquish up. Tatsu's just basically going to knock that out. He actually doesn't even use the Vanquish. He's focusing instead on card draw. And Vadia's Clanfather, super good card here, actually gets to play Steelfang Chakra.
Yeah.
He's just attacking into a double block here.
Yeah, I mean, Child Roland's drawing decently well here. It's showing off the kind of resiliency of these new aggro decks that are playing, you know, a lot of warp. Vadius, as you said, has that ultimate. Pyro Knight has ultimate. So even once you get into this top deck mode, you have a lot of units that have power sinks in them, but Tatsumaki's got the greatest power sink of all, which is drawing even more cards. As we see him play
Island's Choice. Roland pretty much has to play the Sky. Oh, he actually decides to he reads the double islands and he just attacks with Vadius without playing a weapon. Playing Snowcrest Yeti gets him a blocker. He's actually put his opponent at 7. So if he chump blocks here and he can work a way to get 1 extra damage in, an Obliterate will kill, except there is Island's Choice. So.
Yep, and Fire Sigil's the draw from Child Roland, and the writing feels like it's been on the wall for a while, but it got closer. Tatsumaki did end up drawing quite a number of blanks there, multiple Chalices, a lot of power, Island's Choice with no targets, but here comes the Vadius.
For playing this one out. I think he did actually have a reasonable amount of outs against a blank hand. We knew that Tatsu had a lot of good answers, but there was always the possibility that he could have gotten something in.
Yep, so Child Roland goes for lethal, puts the Steelfang Chakram on Vadius. Tatsumaki has the double Island's Choice, and that will be game 1. Yeah, so Roland didn't find like that sweet, warp / charge value that maybe could have got the job done, but still put up a hell of a fight there once it looked like Chalice turned the corner, almost getting there, but just out of reach. But anyways, sideboard time.
Yeah, many sideboards to come. So Tatsumaki here can throw in cards like Auric Runehammer or additional protects, all sorts of things to just sort of like slow things down.
Sandstorm
Titan really reasonable here. It's just not a very good card for Skycrag to deal with, so well worth putting in if he wants to do it. I'm not sure what he brings out at this point. Archive Curator is maybe not that meaningful. It is a good defensive unit that tends to be very helpful here, but the Chalice deck is doing pretty well against Skycrag already, so he can lower the Channel the Tempests and like push a little bit less for that kind of stuff, since really all he needs to do is get ahead on board.
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to see the channels just get totally cut out. Like, you're just going to let Sandstorm Titan be your Channel the Tempest as far as removal's concerned. Just lower that curve. And it looks like we might just see all the Chalice come out as well. Yeah, it looks like they're just cutting all the Chalice in this matchup as it's simply just very, very slow. Instead, you're going to take more of just a big mid-range approach here, where you have your Sandstorm Titan as a win con, your Auric Runehammers, your Wisdoms will keep the cards flowing, but really it's just Combrei healers, stall out the board and let Kothon and Sandstorm Titan finish the job.
Yeah, it's a pretty solid setup. Yeah, so the Skycrag aggro, like, just there's some extra stuff that can come in, more rock slides, but I don't know. It's all like looking pretty bad for Roland if he can't get the aggro in. It's really going to depend on whether Chalice misses a step and Roland gets the correct curve.
Yeah, so if you're Roland, you know they're bringing in Sandstorm Titan. Does that mean you have to bring in Polymorph as well, or do you just kind of shrug and be like, well, my units have quick draw and are kind of big, and I can just uptrade with Torch or bring in Morningstar or something like that?
Yeah, the Katana doesn't really get you over, so I think you probably do bring in Polymorph. It's a little bit awkward because anything that you Polymorph is going to be a Chalice target, so that's not lovely. No, it's pretty tough. He can't Obliterate and Torch, and those are his 2 outs against Sandstorm Titan. Rock Slide doesn't quite do it. Katana doesn't quite do it. But if he manages to set up a reasonable amount of quick draw, then that'll work too.
Yeah, it's a tough spot. I mean, we know that that Tatsumaki took out Chalice, brought in Sandstorm Titan, but we don't know if Child Roland knows that, right?
I think you might bring in the Morning Stars. You're worried about Vanquish and Island's Choice, but it's possible that those are actually going down in number because your opponent doesn't expect you to be playing a lot of 4-drops. So if you're running cards like Morning Star and Soulfire Drake or Firemar are both possibilities, then like you can actually get your units up to the point where they're able to deal with Titan when they have quick draw.
Yeah, no, I've seen the Morningstar plan come in plenty of times before against time-based decks because Vadius Clanfather with a Morningstar can be a real headache to deal with. As we see this match come underway, there's the Polymorph in Child Roland's hand, so that mystery's solved as he has the turn 1 Oni Ronin and is crucially on the play this game as well, so gets to get a couple War Cries and hits in with this Ronin and Pyro Knight.
Yep, pretty good stuff. It's fairly aggressive and fun. So we've got 2 1-drops, no 2 or 3 drops. Roland's curve is looking okay. He does have the Polymorphs in there. He knows the Sandstorm Titans are coming in.
Tatsumaki has the Temple Scribe, but all the power in hands depleted, and the draw for that turn is Seek Power. So Roland's 2-1s are going to have plenty of time to have fun here, as Vadius is the draw for Roland as well.
Such a good draw for him here. Like, he gets the extra bit of damage in. He's got the Aegis. He's actually pushing really, really hard. The Permafrost is something he can use on the Temple Scribe if he needs to, and there's not that many good targets for it, so it might be worth it to use it on even a small unit.
Yep, so Temple Scribe comes down for Tatsumaki here, draws a card, but man, Tatsumaki is on the back foot here, and I wouldn't be shocked to see the Permafrost come out on Temple Scribe here, just as you alluded to. There's not a lot of great targets, so and he's still got the Polymorph and Obliterate in hand.
This is 8 damage. The Diplomatic Seal gets him up to 4, and once he gets to 5, he has access to Obliterate. He can just take this game. All he has to do is make sure that the Kothan is a polymorphed target, and then once that happens, he has Obliterate. I think he's probably got it from here, but Harsh Rule could potentially even the board enough with the Vanquish on Vadius.
Yep, Vanquish pops Aegis on Vadius, but Child Roland finds the undepleted power, so can cast Obliterate here.
Looks like 3 plus 8, so 11 exact. Not quite.
Yep, so by swinging first, gives the out of having exact lethal. If Tatsumaki got greedy and tried to eat a Pyro Knight or an Oni Ronin, that would have been 6 plus 6. But Tatsumaki sniffs out the Obliterate, goes down to 2 instead. And here we'll see the Harsh Rule. And now Child Roland just wants to find a Champion of Fury or an Outlands Brute, as they all have charge and would be lethal here.
I liked going for face there. It means that he doesn't get Island's Choice no matter what happens, and it also means that he has the chance to draw and Obliterate and play it in a turn when his opponent does not have Island's Choice up. Tatsu with the Sandstorm Titan, that is going to get polymorphed. That's still going to block for him and give him a little bit of a chance to stabilize, though.
Yeah, Tatsu's thinking about playing maybe the Harsh Rule instead here. Again, he's got to worry about having stuff down post rule for, as I said, Child Roland has a lot of outs here as far as units with charge and stuff. And actually, we're going to see Combrei Healer and Hold Up Wisdom and maybe like some sort of chump block on this 5/5.
It's got to be a chump. Roland wisely not using the affected the board at all here. He can play Oni Ronin, but that risks a harsh rule. The extra damage is important, though. He needs it for Torch. So we see Wisdom into a potential harsh rule. Island's Choice is still a problem. Roland needs Obliterate, and Tatsu needs an Island's Choice to stop Obliterate.
Tatsu finds Vanquish, so now can just go Vanquish Sandstorm Titan. Child Roland's found his polymorph target, but hasn't found a way to end this yet.
Yeah,
As,
the
man.
polymorph target still gets hit by Oni Ronin, so...
Tatsumaki's hand is another Sandstorm Titan, a Combre Healer, and a Harsh Rule. This is going to be a tough
Cinder
one.
Yeti off the top isn't very good. He still hasn't found Island's Choice, so Roland has 3 outs in his deck. And if he gets them, that's very useful. But, Combre Healer gets him above 6.
Yep. Tatsumaki, aware of the fact that he hasn't found Island's Choice, opts to play the Combre Healer instead of the Sandstorm Titan to cut down on those outs. Finds Auric Runehammer for this buffed up Vadius, and it's not looking pretty for Child Roland in this game, too.
Close, but those Combre Healers really do change the battlefield around against these burn decks. Any sort of life gain in Eternal can be extremely beneficial against Skycrag and Stonescar aggro, especially when it's attached to a good body. So, that's something that we've been seeing as a recurring theme for the last couple of games, whether it's been with the Argenport decks with their lifesteal units. Oh, that backlash is actually very spicy. If he hits a channel with it, then he has Obliterate up. That's really good.
It's never hitting a channel, though. There are no channels in Tatsumaki's deck. As we see, Child Roland finally found some lethal burn, except it's not lethal anymore. Tatsumaki sitting pretty at 7 health.
Torch into Torch. And Tatsu doesn't have a thing to counter, so it's not going to be all that good here. Torch into Obliterate. That's the answer here.
Child Roland should Torch on end step there so that if you draw Obliterate, you could still hold up Backlash for Island's Choice. He didn't. He's not going to get punished for it either because he's dead.
Well, the death is the ultimate punishment.
Yeah. Oof. And the punishment it is. Sandstorm Titan comes in. No need for Chalice. No need for Channel the Tempest post board. Just good old-fashioned Titan beats. Get the job done there as Tatsumaki takes it 2-0 over Child Roland.
That's a bit of a bummer. So we do see the Chalice deck knocking out the Skycrag aggro. And from there, it's looking like we've got a Chalice deck advancing a little bit further in.
Yeah, I believe that puts Tatsumaki to 4-1. Child Roland tumbles down to 3-2. It's possible an X&2 deck list makes it to the top 8, maybe even multiple ones. But Child Roland might be on the outside looking in as far as breakers go. But best of luck to them in the next round anyways. In the meantime, we've got a backup matchup to drop on in. Looks like Tobboo is fighting here at the top of the bracket still, or near the top of the bracket. I'm not sure where Tobboo is exactly, but we're going to jump on in as he's still on that Stonescar Flyers deck. And,
we've seen this deck run once before. He's got Statuary Maidens coming in from the sideboard, so we're definitely in game 2 or 3. But it's looking interesting. He's got setup, and it is game 3. Statuary Maidens are really interesting here, and depending on what Swann's running, it's going to be a little bit tricky.
Yeah, we're getting all that info up. Tobboo's currently 3-1, and so is Swann. So basically a win here almost locks you up for top 8, or at least puts you in much better spots. A loss here almost certainly will eliminate you from top 8 or put you as a long shot. So a lot on the line here in this game 3 as this match is about to get underway. Ooh, Swann repping the premium Talir avatar. That's pretty nice.
Yeah, looking pretty solid. We've seen a lot of good premium avatars out there. I've seen a Roland, I've seen an Lin, I've seen Talir. So
I'm Vera till the day I die. And let's see here. Okay, Tobboo's on the play against Swann is repping Praxis mid-range here with the 4 Power Stone. So that's pretty sweet as Tobboo finds another Granite Monument.
Yeah, it's really funny. We never see the premium Scions up against each other. They're always up against a premium Mullet and Nakova.
I mean, there's no shame in using Mullet and Nakova. That's a sweet premium as well. So Swann just playing power and passing, depleted monuments. That Seed of Impulse wasn't depleted, though, so we know there's some more power lurking in Swann's hand as Tobboo either gets to play an Instigator and hold up Torch or go with the Champ, and we see the Instigator come down.
Yeah, there was a really weird play there where he could have like used the Diplomatic Seal to get his third red and ensure Soulfire Drake happened. Just kind of noting that, but I think that like overall that's definitely the right way to go since it means he gets access to Champion of Chaos.
All right, an Amber Acolyte is the play here for Swann. So just develops that power even further. Yeah, Vera's favor.
Having Vara's favor, he gets to at least kill the Amber Acolyte and get things started. He doesn't get to his 4-drops. He might play Champion of Chaos first if he wants to get a little crazy with it. But I think that Vara's favor here allows him to set up Statuary Maiden into Torch, which is not a bad play. There's a couple of different options here.
Yeah, this is really interesting. Like, you can try and get on the beats and establish the Champion of Chaos. It means you miss out on power, though. Vara's favor has some valuable targets, but the value of that might go down if your opponent's still playing Xenon Obelisk, although generally against aggressive decks you take out Xenon Obelisk. But yeah, this is not an easy decision. There's very good arguments both ways. Vera's favor guarantees you can start getting your flyers down soon. And as you alluded to, Statuary Maiden, which is also excellent in this matchup. And that's what Tobboo's going to go with. Just going to go with the surefire thing here.
Yep. Crimson Firemaw seems like a reasonable thing to be playing down. Soulfire Drake could very rapidly follow that, so good to have it. Unfortunately, we do have the Sandstorm Titan #1, and that is a card that is real hard for Tobboo to deal with. He's going to play Statuary Maiden here, but if that gets removed, Tobboo is just out of options. Like, all of his stuff does not match up against Sandstorm Titan.
Yeah, both players are essentially presenting threats that are hard for the other deck to deal with, right? Sandstorm Titan you have to annihilate or do something like that with. But Statuary Maiden, if you're Praxis, you have to obliterate it. You don't really have any other clean options except for something like double Torch or Heart of the Vault plus Torch, or then you have to use a killer unit and then it gets turned into a cudgel. Just a real mess of a card to deal with. We saw a lot of Armory decks start playing Maiden in response to Praxis when it first became really popular, and we're seeing it here do a job differently in just this mid-range matchup.
Yep, functions as removal for the Sandstorm Titan. If Swann has a second Sandstorm Titan, that's really all he needs, but we'll see exactly what he ends up playing down here.
Yeah. But now if Swann has another Titan, Tobboo has a cudgel to make one of these dragons big enough to go toe-to-toe with the Titan. Instead, we see Swann just play out a Power Stone, play out a Temple Scribe, just develop power, ramp a little bit more.
Getting up towards Heart of the Vault value, yeah.
All right, Tobboo draws a Caleb's Favor return, so I think Caleb's Favor plus Champion of Chaos is a pretty clean play here. Could go for the Crimson Firemaw instead, though.
Of that really nice setup with the cudgel, those are good on both the Firemaw and the Champion of Chaos, so whichever he ends up running out I think is going to be fine. It's really nice to secure that 5th power for Soulfire Drake, so if you can get the champion down, that's probably the best way to go. Yeah,
I like the idea of going champion, favor plus champion. Champion now is Overwhelm, and you're guaranteed to just start chaining Soulfire Drakes, so if your opponent doesn't have a Titan, you're going to be really beating them down in the skies no matter what kind of threat Swann presents here other than Sandstorm Titan.
So Stone Scar's no place for the weak-hearted. So are ready to rock and roll. We've got the Soulfire Drakes all up and running. Swann's got to find good answers to this. There's Torch. There's lots of good, simple stuff. And Torch it is.
Ooh, and there's a Titan. Jeez. That's a rough spot to be in if you're Tobboo. You can't swing if you play a Soulfire Drake here, as you don't have the power to throw a cudgel on them. You could develop a Firemaw or a Champion of Chaos, though, and we'll see what Tobboo opts to do.
Firemaw might make the most sense, depending on whether or not he wants to block the Sandstorm Titan. If he's going to chump the Sandstorm Titan, Champion makes the most sense, since it is pretty capable of Torch here. And Firemaw just looks so good against Sandstorm Titan offensively if it's got a cudgel on it, but I think I really like that option too.
Yeah, and Swann missed power that turn, so Swann's hand is basically all gas as well. So both players have a lot of spells to play with. It's really a question of how are they going to deploy it and how they match up against each other. Tobboo does have 4 Annihilates in the main deck. I imagine most of those are staying in. I wonder if the rapid shots out of the side came in, though. It is good traditionally against time, but maybe not against time that's playing Torch.
Yeah, a tricky question here. So Tobboo stuff looks really awkward, and that's definitely problematic because he does want to be getting some damage in before Swann gets too crazy with the Heart of the Volts. Generally, with the practice decks, the more you can do before Heart of the Volts start coming out, the better off you are. Right now, Tobboo's just looking at a pretty slow hand, pretty slow setup. He could do Crimson Firemaw. He could do like kind of a weird defensive Soulfire Drake play, but Firemaw seems like the right play here. And
Firemaw with the cudgel on it right away exposes the blowout to obliterate here.
If he's got to obliterate, that's going to be a big problem. But if he doesn't, then
yeah,
there's
basically this plays worse against obliterate, but better against things like Xenon Initiation. And instead, we just see a Reinhardt come down.
So now Tobboo has some interesting options. He can attack in. It'll be a not great trade, but it'll be a good enough trade to knock out actually the Reinhardt and the Sandstorm Titan with Varus and Torch.
Yep. You can Varus Favor now pre-combat take out that 1/1 Temple Scribe and force Swann to double block the Crimson Firemaw. Where if you swing like this,
yeah, if you want the triple block here, then the 7 damage goes in, and then you Varus the 5/5 and torch it to kill it. So he gets better value that way, leaving.
Yeah, or now if Swann just double blocks, like doesn't want to put Titan in the line of fire, the torch takes out the 1/1, and then you eat the Reinhardt. Right, so that's what Tobboo's going for here. Is if there's a triple block, cool, you get to kill Titan. If there's only a double block, cool, my Crimson Firemaw lives. I just have to use Torch on Temple Scribe instead of Varus Favor.
So good options either way. I think Tobboo set himself up very well, and he'll still be able to play champion regardless of what the blocks are. So he's looking pretty good.
Yep. So the other option there was, again, to Varus Favor pre-combat, make them double block, and then at least you're dealing with Titan. But by doing it this way, you're keeping your Crimson Firemaw for another day. So it's all about what you value the most. Because now you don't have a great use for this Varus Favor other than just making a fully active Champion of Chaos, which is a useful thing to have.
Yeah, definitely quite nice to be able to block the Sandstorm Titan and prevent Swann from getting too aggressive with you. Like, at this point, if Swann manages to attack with the 5/5s, then he's putting him on like a 3-turn clock. And Tobboo doesn't have that kind of clock just yet. He's getting pretty close to it, but it's going to be pretty tricky either way. So we see Varus directly to the face.
Again, Swann's still got a hand of all action, so does Tobboo, but for now, these Soulfire Drakes are effectively blanked for as long as this Titan's alive. Tobboo has a lot of outs, though, to killing this Titan. And there's the Xenon Initiation from Swann. We'll see if this ends up killing the Firemaw or just taking out the Champion of Chaos so that this Titan isn't threatened by anything.
I think Swann realizes his priority is to kill the... Purify's the worst here. It is a really good answer to Soulfire Drake, but if you do that, then you set yourself up with a good answer to Soulfire Drake anyways.
So there we go. Xenon Initiation clears out the Firemaw. Titan is all that stands alone here. Tobboo, though, has Soulfire Drake plus Torch. We're probably just going to see that trade happen at this point while Swann is tapped out.
This attack doesn't look too bad for him. Getting the charge and the flying on his units is going to be fairly beneficial. Yeah. Swann might just not block, and that does seem like he's good. Yeah, it's a reasonable way to go about it. The second Soulfire Drake might force a block, though.
Yeah, Swann sniffed out this Torch a while ago with all these pauses on one. And we see another Reinhardt. So Swann's stuck on power, but finding big old dinosaurs is a pretty good consolation prize. And Tobboo might just slam the other Soulfire Drake here and just hit A space again.
Too. He can play Soulfire Drake defensively against this Sandstorm Titan, but I think it's just all offense all the time here. You're just trying to run out and beat Swann to the punch. From here, and that's everything. Like, there's flying and charge on every unit that Tobboo top decks, and it's going to be all about Tobboo's top decks. But what he gets is going to be probably not that good because most of his actual big stuff has flying.
Yeah, it's really a question of is Swann ever going to run and actually block with this Sandstorm Titan? He knows Tobboo has that torch at this point. He's figured that out. Doesn't have to worry about rapid shot here. We know this Reinarch is going to block one of these Soulfire Drakes, or at least I think we know. I guess if Swann has Obliterate in hand, they won't, right? Because
Just
you
take the
have
time.
Echo Crackback. But I mean, if they're really thinking about this, all right, does Swann have Obliterate in hand? The no blocks kind of suggests that's what he's trying to draw to as an out here.
Yeah, it's a tough call. So attacking all in, that means he's going to have to play at least one blocker to stay ahead of the Soulfire Drakes.
Or is the... Okay, Friendly Wisp
Okay,
is a blocker,
one
as you alluded to. And again, Sandstorm Titan's hanging back still. So you can still block with Sandstorm Titan this turn. And, ooh, just a Shadow Sigil from Tobboo.
Drawn a Vara's Favor that would have been game. As it stands, he's got a 5/2 attacker. He's got a Torch. But that's lethal on the crackback pretty much no matter what.
Well, you'll have an Outlaw to lay down and a Torch, but yeah, I think it's better to swing with both than it is to not swing at all. Maybe Swann doesn't block, even though, again, they've been playing like you have Torch the whole game. Swann just might have a Torch or a Purify in hand. Again, Swann's been missing power. It's all action all the time. We've been seeing Reinarchs come down. We see a Friendly Wisp come down here. It's unlikely Swann's hand is all 6 drops. Certainly possible, though.
Yeah, the Friendly Wisp presents a problem because it does need to be removed to prevent Swann from just getting too crazy. Tobboo's going for the attack. That means he'll probably get a block from the Friendly Wisp. He'll get the Torch on the Sandstorm Titan. All of his stuff will have flying. Rakano Outlaw will just chump the 5/5.
Yeah, that's if Swann... No pause there. So Swann doesn't have anything like Purify or Torch. You know, didn't use it on Soulfire Drake. Didn't have it in response there. But here comes the swing in with the Reinarch. Got a block to not die. But does Swann... just has a Crimson Fire Maul. Ugh, Caleb's favor, though.
Card. Yep, Caleb's favor is not good enough, so Tobboo is now out of options. He got really close, but it was just not quite there.
Yep, Tobboo drew a lot of power. Swann drew a lot of action, and that's all she wrote here. Tobboo showing that, hey, I've got 9 power, but Swann's like, well, my power was in the form of dinosaurs, and that wins the game here.
Flame Bless, so getting knocked off of that. So there you go. That was game 3, correct? So that is Swann for the victory?
Yeah, I believe that was game 3. So, yep, Swann moves on to the XM1 bracket. There's still 1 round of play left to go, so very much alive for top 8. Tobboo technically still alive, but very much a long shot here as we get ready for round 6, the last and final round before we cut to top 8 in this very special Horus Traver edition of the ETS Weekly. See you soon.